So there is this weird thing about Ulysses that it is the big book. It is one of those books that is constantly mentioned and referred to. It's the kind of famous book of the 20th century. In a way, it is a book from which we're all trying to escape. It and Lord of the Rings stand as the big, massive book that a lot of people say, you really ought to read this. And it's a book that takes a share of mocking. I remember a TV show called Sean's Show, which featured an Irish guy living in London. In the second season of it, it was a comedy thing. The second season of it, he made a point of telling us, the audience, that, you know, he's no longer listening to Morrissey, he's listening to jazz now. And beyond that, he's also got Ulysses. Great preface. And so every time somebody would visit his house for the first time in this new season, they'd say, Ulysses, great preface. It's not surprising then that one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century reads, or is famous for being in photos where she's reading one of the most iconic books of the 20th century. So Marilyn Monroe is a remarkable figure. She is the woman who was married to Joe DiMaggio, the famous baseball player, Arthur Miller, the famous intellectual playwright, and is reputed to have had an affair with John F. Kennedy, the famous politician. She's photographed by the legendary photographer Eve Arnold in a playground reading Ulysses. You should be seeing the photograph now. So she took Eve Arnold took a series of photographs of her in around this time and over the 1950s. This photo comes from 1955. It's often claimed that Marilyn Monroe was trying to create an image for herself. I don't think that's really the case. This is a quote from Eve Arnold, and I think this tells us an awful lot about who Marilyn Monroe is. We worked on a beach on Long Island. She was visiting Norman Rosen, the poet. I asked her what she was reading when I went to pick her up. I was trying to get an idea of how she spent her time. She said she kept Ulysses in her car and had been reading it for a long time. She said that she loved the sound of it and would read it aloud to herself to try to make sense of it. But she found it hard going. She couldn't read it consecutively. When we stopped at a local playground to photograph, she got out the book and started to read while I loaded the film. So of course, I photographed her. It was always a collaborative effort of photographer and subject where she was concerned, but almost more her input. So it's a fantastic and a fascinating image. We see different pictures of Monroe reading. She was always able to defeat what people expected of her, in my opinion. And when she says it's hard going, yeah, it's hard going. Sorry, but it is. And when she says that she liked to read it aloud, you can see that she has hit on something. By the time Joyce gets to his final book, initially Anne Olivia Pluribel, but really Finnegan's Wake, that is not a book that rewards silent reading. That's a book to be read aloud. And huge chunks of Ulysses need that reading aloud. So kudos for Marilyn for getting it. And kudos for Marilyn for repping it. She was always her own woman, like Joyce was always his own man. And I think if we try to paint her into one corner as bombshell or actress or the woman who's singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President, we really are missing out on the broader picture of who she was and of an America that she could stand for.
Those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls. They look all right, complexions pink and white. They've diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and grace and lots of face, those pretty little seaside girls.